что вы пришли. Сегодня у нас, мы назвали ее конференцией. Вообще, наверное, было бы правильнее назвать что-нибудь типа английского вечера, посвященного американскому поэту Генри Лонгфелло. Если кого-нибудь из вас до того, как вы увидели вот это, спросить, кто это, то наверняка ответа не будет, да, потому что он очень, как-то у нас не очень популярен. Единственное его произведение известное — это песня о Гаевате. Но так случилось, что те студенты, которые учатся у меня английскому языку уже очень много лет, на втором курсе в обязательном порядке учат одно из его стихотворений «Стрела и песня» «The Arrow and the Song». И когда мы с ребятами начали работать над этим стихотворением, то я решила, чтобы они узнали что-то об этом поэте. Мы стали читать текст про него и выяснили, что он у нас двойной юбиляр. И поэтому пришла такая идея сделать такой вечер, да? Как вы видите по датам, это 215 лет со дня рождения и 140 лет со дня смерти. Самое время познакомиться с его творчеством. Название взято из его, наверное, одного из таких, я бы сказала, может быть, программных стихотворений «Псалом жизни». Вы его сегодня полностью услышите. Переводится это как «Следы на песках времени». Сам он, как мы сейчас узнаем, все-таки оставил следы на песках времени. Хотела бы сразу попросить вас о снисходительности, потому что, как вы знаете, обучение английскому языку в щепке — это не самый важный предмет, происходит это параллельно с каким-то другим предметом, как правило, движенческим. Вот. И у нас не было ни одной репетиции, чтобы мы целиком и полностью вместе две группы репетировали. Да? Поэтому мы даже не знаем точно, сколько это длится. Ну, в общем, поэтому просим вас о снисходительности. Но это не очень долго, поверьте. Вот. А дальше все зависит от ребят и от их готовности. Пожелаем им удачи. Good luck!
There are things of which I may not speak. There are dreams that cannot die. There are thoughts that make the strong heart weak, and bring a pillar into the cheek and a mist before the eye.
Henry Wadsworth Longfellow was the most widely published and the most famous American poet of the 19th century.
Longfellow was born on the 27th of February 1807 in the American seaport of Portland, Maine, then Massachusetts.
A love of the sea influenced his writing throughout Longfellow's life.
My soul is full of longing for the secrets of the sea, and the heart of the great ocean sends a thrilling pulse through me.
Henry's father was a lawyer.
His mother was the daughter of Pedagog Wadsworth, a general in the American War of Independence.
Longfellow became professor of modern languages at Bowdoin College in Brunswick, Maine, and then was offered a similar post at Harvard College.
To prepare himself, he traveled widely in Europe.
What was his first book about? His first book was a collection of travel sketches. It appeared in 1835.
His first wife, Mary Potter, died in the Netherlands in the same 1835, following a miscarriage.
Longfellow took up his teaching duties at Harvard in 1847.
Longfellow remarried in 1843 and had 5 children.
In 1843, the Great House, near Harvard College in the city of Cambridge, was presented for Henry and Frances Longfellow as a wedding gift by the poet's father-in-law.
The house earlier was used by the Continental Army and was the first headquarters for General George Washington from July 1775 to April 1776.
In 1972, 50 years ago, that place became a National Historic Site and museum.
By the late 1840s, Longfellow was a celebrity, the most popular native poet of his time.
He left Harvard 1854 to concentrate on writing.
And the next 7 years were his most productive. In 1861, his wife Frances burned to death when her dress caught fire while she was using sealing wax on a letter.
He drew his iconic bushy beard to hide the burn scars he sustained while trying to save.
Longfellow died in Cambridge, Massachusetts on the 24th of March 1882.
Longfellow's reputation among critics declined sharply after his death, and he had much less influence on modern poetry than such other poets of his day as Walt Whitman and Emily Dickinson.
However, many of his poems remain among the most familiar in American literature.
Longfellow was a prolific poet who wrote a lot of great poems, not all of which are well known.
His best-known longer works include Evangeline, The Song of Hiawatha, The Courtship of Miles Standish.
One of the most famous poems about the War of Independence is Paul Revere's Ride.
The narrative poem published in 1860 details the journey made by the American patriot Paul Revere on the 18th of April.
Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year.
Revere awaits the signal telling him how and where the British will attack American troops.
When he hears they are taken by sea, the devout Petro rides full pet across Massachusetts to warn his fellow Americans.
Longfellow's poem did much to create the modern myth of Paul Revere, whose celebrated nighttime ride wasn't mentioned in his biography.
The Rainy Day is another Longfellow's popular poem.
The phrase, "Into each life some rain must fall," has become famous, and it originated in his poem, which beautifully captures the misery of a day when the rain never lets up.
Longfellow deftly conveys the cyclical nature of suffering, something it shares with the weather through his rhyme scheme.
There is no escape from dreary thoughts or dreary weather, it would seem.
The day is cold and dark and dreary. It rains and the wind is never away. The vine still clings to the mountain wall, but at every gust the dead leaves fall, and the day is dark and dreary.
My life is cold and dark and dreary. It rains and the wind is never weary. My thoughts still cling to the mouldering past, but the hopes of youth fall thick in the blast, and the days are dark and dreary.
Be still, said heart, and cease repining. Behind the clouds is the sun still shining. Thy fate is the common fate of all. Into each life some rain must fall. Some days must be dark and dreary.
He sang of Hiawatha, sang the song of Hiawatha, sang his wonders, birth and being.
How he prayed and how he fasted, how he lived and toiled and suffered.
Let the tribes of men might prosper, let he might advance his people.
Longfellow is best known for the Song of Hiawatha published in 1855.
has a rich tradition of epic poetry, stretching from Homer and Virgil to Spenser and Milton, among others.
But the relatively young country and culture of the United States has also risen to the challenge of producing its own native epic verse. And native is quite the word, as Longfellow, in this hugely popular poem, tells of the fictional life and adventures of Hiawatha, a warrior, and the tragedy of his love for a Dakotan woman named Minnehaha. Also, he drew on long-standing oral tradition, Longfellow brightened the myths and history, and produced one of the great epic poems for American literature.
Its distinctive meter, a notable example of trochaic tetrameter, has also become famous.
In sentiment, scope, oral conception, and many particulars, Longfellow insisted.
I can give chapter and verse for these legends. The chief value is that they are Indian legends.
As a young man walking lightly, as the open door entered, red with blood of youth his cheeks were, soft his eyes as stars in springtime.
Bound his forehead was with grasses, bound and plumed with scented grasses.
On his lips, a smile of beauty, filling all the lodge with sunshine.
In his hand a bunch of blossoms, fill all the lodge with sweetness.
Ah, my son,
exclaimed the old man.
Happy are my eyes to see you. Sit here on the mat beside me. Sit here by the dying embers. Let us pass the night together. Tell me of your strange adventures, of the lands where you have traveled. I will tell you of my prowess, of my many deeds of wonder.
From his pouch he drew his peace pipe, very old and strange in fashion.
Made of redstone was the pipe head, and the stem a reed with feathers.
Filled the pipe with dark oak wheel, placed a burning coal upon it.
Gave he to his guest, the stranger, and began to speak in this way.
When I blow my breath about, when I breathe upon the landscape, motionless are all the rivers, hard as stone becomes the water.
And the young man answered smiling.
When I blow my breath about, when I breathe upon the landscape, flowers spring up all the meadows, singing onward rush the river.
When I shake my hoary feathers,
said the old man darkly frowning,
all the lands with snow is covered, all the leaves from all the branches, fall and fade and die and wither, for I breathe and blow, way up. From the waters and the marshes rise the vultures and the heron, fly away to distant regions, for I speak and blow, way I run. And where my footsteps wander, all the wild beasts of the forest hide themselves in holes and caverns, and the earth becomes as flintstone.
When I shake my flowing ringlets,
said the young man softly laughed.
Showers of rain are warm and welcome. Plants lift up their hair rejoicing back into the lakes and marshes. Comes the wild goose and the heron, cover shoots the air with swallow. Sing the bluebird and the robin, and where my footsteps wander, all the meadows blade with blossoms, all the woodlands ring with music, all the trees are dark with foliage.
While they spake, the night departed. From the distance realms of Babel.
From his shining lodge of silver, like a warrior robed and painted,
came the sun and said, "Behold me, Jesus the great sun, behold me."
Longfellow translated poetry from 18 languages.
His most significant translation, published in 1867, was of Dante Alighieri's medieval poem, The Divine Comedy.
Longfellow worked on the translation over a period of several years.
A group of writers know that the Dante Club met at Creative House once a week to offer critical advice on the translation.
In the finished work, a pair of Longfellow's original sonnets preceded each of the three major sections of the Divine Comedy.
The sonnets are among Longfellow's best lyric poems.
O star of morning, of liberty, O bringer of the light, whose splendor shines above the darkness of the Apennines, forerunner of the day that is to be.
The voices of the city and the sea. The voices of the mountains and the pines. Repeat thy song till the familiar lines, a footpath for the sun of Italy.
Thy fame is blown abroad from all the heights, through all the nations, and a sound is heard, as of mighty wind and men devout, strangers of Rome and the new proselytes. In Dover language hear the wondrous word, and many are amazed, and many doubt.
Some scholars feel that Longfellow made the finest translation of the Divine Comedy into English language.
I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and the wild and sweet the words repeat, of peace on earth, goodwill to men.
And in despair I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men.
And pealed the bells more loud and deep, God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men.
To the modern reader, Longfellow's sentimental and optimistic poetry often makes him seem somewhat old-fashioned.
In fact, however, he consistently experimented in verse form from outside the English language. He used his extensive knowledge of his literature of other countries as a source for both the form and content of much of his poetry.
This added energy to his work and made it more interesting. At a time when most poetry had became rather predictable.
He was the first American writer to be honored with a bust in the Poets' Corner of Westminster Abbey in London.
The inscription under the bust reads,
This bust was placed amongst the memorials of the poets of England by the English admirers of an American poet.
It testifies to Longfellow's substantial repetition among a British public. Something confirmed on his visit to Britain.
In 1868, he was awarded an honorary doctorate of laws at Cambridge, breakfasted with Prime Minister Gladstone, and was received by Queen Victoria and the Prince of Wales.
However, the Queen herself wasn't very complimentary, telling him that he was popular with his servants.
Longfellow's verse was translated into many languages.
And he became known throughout the world.
See for yourself how modern and wise his thoughts and ideals still are.
Every man has his secret sorrow which the world knows not. And oftentimes we call a man cold when he's only sad.
If we could read the secret history of our enemies, we should find in each man's life sorrow and suffering enough to disarm all hostility.
Music is the universal language of mankind.
The love of learning, the sequestered nooks, and all the sweet serenity of books.
We judge ourselves by what we feel capable of doing, while others judge us by what we have already done.
For after all, the best thing one can do when it's raining, it's let it rain.
I do not believe anyone can be perfectly well who has a brain and a heart.
The nearer the dawn, the darker the night.
Most people would succeed in small things if they were not troubled with great ambitions.
Give what you have. To someone, it may be better than you dare to think.
Art is the child of nature, in whom we trace the features of the mother's face.
Nothing is too late till the tired heart shall cease to palpitate.
The heart, like the mind, has a memory, and in it I kept the most precious keepsakes.
Unasked, unsought, love gives itself, but it's not bought.
Glorious indeed is the world of God around us, but more glorious the world of God within us.
Tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream.
For the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem.
Life is real. Life is earnest. Is the grave is not its goal.
Dust thou art to dust returnest, was not spoken of the soul.
One enjoyment, another sorrow, is our destined and our way.
But to acts that each tomorrow find us farther than today.
Art is long and time is fleeting, and our hearts were stout and brave.
Still like muffled drums are beating, funeral marches to the grave.
In the world's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life.
Be not like damp, driven cattle. Be a hero in the strife.
Trust no future, however pleasant. Let the dead past bury its dead.
Art. act in the living present. Heart within and God ahead.
Lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime.
And departing, leave behind us footprints on the sands of time.
Footprints that perhaps another, selling our lives solemnly.
A forlorn of shipwrecked brother, seeing shelter heartily.
Let us then be up and doing,
with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait.